You're an oversharer, a data dumper. Maybe you're a rambler with a side of rabbit holes. If that's the truth for you, then you are invited to join me for my upcoming Goldilocks online workshop. Yes, Goldilocks, where I'm going to teach you how to say not too little, not too much, but just the right amount that you can land your message with impact every single time without overthinking it, without going down your own rabbit hole of self-doubt, but just speak up. It's happening on Thursday, the 30th of October. And no, it is not one of those webinars where I'm going to sell you some stuff, nor is it one of those webinars where you just sit there and just listen while I just blur at you. It's a fully interactive workshop, as if we were sitting in the same room together. It's happening, as I said, Thursday, the 30th of October, 12:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time, and is going to run for just 75 minutes. So enough time that you can squeeze it into your day and get a whole lot of juice. It's $67 to attend. The link is in the show notes, and I cannot wait to see you, but more importantly, give you the tools that you need to say not too little, not too much, but just the right amount. So I look forward to seeing you then. But for now, welcome to another episode of Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson, the show where I coach people like you, humble leaders, public servants, business owners, and other corporate hippies like myself, how to speak, how to show up, how to contribute to the conversations that matter. It's awesome to have you here. And today, yes, we're talking about one of the most dreaded issues that people face when it comes to speaking. What happens if people disagree with me? What happens indeed? What happens indeed? Now, last week I talked about making impact over time, like long-term impact. And one of the things that comes up for people when they're wanting to make long-term impact, when they're wanting to put themselves out there and say, no, I think it should be like this, whatever that is they're worried that people are going to disagree with them. And so they don't speak up. Well, I've got a newsflash for you. People are going to disagree with you. Because if they already agreed with you, then you wouldn't need to speak up. If they already agreed with you, if they already believed in what you believed, then you wouldn't need to be telling them otherwise. So yes, people will disagree, but we tell ourselves that disagreement is terrible, that we shouldn't have disagreement. You know, we just want to keep the peace. We want to be nice. We want to be liked. We want all of the people to like us all of the time. I recorded a while ago now an episode with the fabulous Kate Toon, and we actually talked about how to build the confidence to be disliked. And it's informed how I go about my life in many different ways. And in fact, I have a little post-it note that sits on my computer screen that says, in order to connect with my people, I actually need to show up and be seen so I can be dismissed by the people who aren't my people. And being disagreed with is part of that. Having the arguments respectfully is part of the deal. So today I wanted to talk about, how do you manage disagreements? How do you deal with conflict? In fact, I recently delivered a series of workshops for a corporate client. Communicating through conflict was the name of the sessions. And we talked about, how do you actually not just deal with the conflict when it happens, but how do you set things up in a way that people can hear a different point of view without it being a violent disagreement, without it being so antagonistic that people tune out? Because that is the key, isn't it, to making change? That is the key to changing people's minds. Presenting alternative perspectives in a way that can be heard and can shift and change minds. So the first thing that I want to say is disagreement is part of the process. And if you're not speaking up because you're worried that people are going to disagree with you, well, that's kind of like not getting out of bed because you're worried the sun's going to come down at the end of the day. Like, it's fact. It's how it's going to happen. And so if you want to make a difference, if you want to make an impact, if you want to contribute, you need to be okay with people disagreeing with you. In order to do that, I think it's useful to acknowledge that disagreements don't affect your self-worth or your professional value. In fact, how you navigate disagreements can dramatically increase your professional value. I'm reminded of a friend and client who recently had to navigate a really, really tricky situation at work where a number of her line managers and key stakeholders were really unhappy with a policy change that she was suggesting, like really unhappy. And they kind of went to town on her in a meeting with the group manager. She handled herself with such class, with such thoughtfulness, and with such respect for their opinions, despite feeling attacked and torn down and vulnerable. Not only did she get the outcome that she was looking for, she got the new policy, but she also really earned the respect, or amplified the respect of senior leaders in the organisation. So rather than avoiding disagreements, put some thought and time into thinking about how you're going to manage them. So one of the ways that you can manage disagreements is what I call pacing out objections. When you're thinking about talking to somebody or making a presentation or implementing a change that you know is going to have objections, pace them out rather than ignore them. We tend to think that, if I just pretend that everyone's just going to like it, think about any IT change management program that you've ever been through. And, invariably the project manager comes in and goes, this is just going to be fantastic for everybody. And everybody goes, no, this isn't going to be fantastic for everybody. It's going to take time. Things are going to break. I'm going to have to move all my data, blah, 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 blah. When people ignore the objections, they feel not only unheard, but it increases the resistance. Whereas when you pace out the objections, people feel seen and they know that you've got it in hand. So for example, using that same, IT change process, we recognise that IT projects can go haywire. We recognise that it will take time to get used to a new system. We recognise that you're very used to using the old system and you've got all of your hacks and your shorthand, your shortcuts and all the ways to work around the limitations of the system. We get all that. And over time, what we know about this particular implementation is it's going to be better, it's going to be more efficient, and you're not going to need to have so many workarounds. See how pacing out the objections, it acknowledges that there are concerns. It acknowledges that there's disagreements. And it gives space to move forward with those anyway. It also demonstrates that you've given some thought to it, that you're not just bulldozing people. You're not just coming in all razzle-dazzle and going, oh, this is amazing. You're kind of going, yeah, I know this is going to suck. and we're going to do it anyway. So that's pacing out objections. The other frame is agreement frames. Now, agreement frames are just a really powerful way of dealing with any disagreement. You can use this at home with your family, as well as in a professional setting. And what agreement frames are doing is acknowledging the other person, and we're acknowledging the other person's point of view without negating it to make our point. So it goes like this. I agree that IT projects can be really challenging. And one of the things that we're working on in this particular one, or it might be, I completely respect that you really like the current IT system. I really get it. And I get how familiar and, easy it is for you to use. And one of the things that we're going to do with the new system What you might be noticing in those phrases is, as well as agreeing or respecting, or another phrase might be, I understand that you're really attached to the current system. I understand that you've invested lots of time and energy and what we're going to do here. The other thing that I hope you've heard, and it's hard when I don't have visual cues to demonstrate this. What I'm hoping that you've also heard is, at no point did I use the word but. I used the word and. I understand and. I appreciate and. I respect and. Because when we use the word but, we're completely discounting what we just said. I think you're wearing a fabulous shirt today. You look amazing, but you should have worn a different pair of shoes. It's like, ouch. Oh, like, talk about a backhanded compliment. It's not even a backhanded compliment. It's taking the compliment away. And the same thing happens when we say, I understand that that's your point of view, but my point of view is more valid. So when we use agreement frames, when we use phrases like I agree, I understand, I appreciate, I respect, and then we connect it with an and, then we're acknowledging that there's more than one opinion, there's more than one perspective, there's more than one way. And we don't need to make people wrong in order for us to be right. Multiple perspectives can be correct. And so when you're in a potential conflict situation, when you're having a disagreement, the more that you can acknowledge the person that you're talking to and acknowledge that they're not wrong, there's just a different perspective. This becomes incredibly important when you are trying to drive change, when you're trying to influence. Because if people feel like every engagement with you is a make wrong, I'm thinking about, you think about any of the major causes. When we make people wrong for smoking, what do? They get defensive. When we make people wrong for not recycling or driving their gas guzzler cars or not conserving water, what do? They get defensive. Whereas when we appreciate and acknowledge that humans are being humans and they're doing things because that's what they do, and then we can present different ways to move forward without them feeling defensive, then we can be far more effective, far more powerful, far more influential in driving that change. So just to recap on those 3 points. 1, disagreements don't affect your self-worth. In fact, disagreements are a necessary part of influencing change. If everybody agreed with you, you wouldn't need to say anything. Pace out objections. Pace out objections and use agreement frames. Not only the framing of I appreciate, I understand, and I respect, but also using the word and instead of but. Like, just eliminate the word but from your vocabulary. I barely use the word but. Barely. Except when I'm talking about a good, well-fitting pair of jeans. As I said, I will pop another episode in the show notes, the interview and the discussion that I had with Kate Toon a while ago, actually a couple of years ago now, about building the confidence to not be liked, because I actually think that's a muscle. The be disliked muscle is actually a really powerful one for us all to build. I'll pop that into the show notes. And if you've got any thoughts or another question that you would like me to answer, please reach out to me on Instagram. @Kat Matson is the best way to do that, and Kat is with a C. Ask me a question. Ask me a question that I can answer on an upcoming episode. Speaking of questions episodes, this is episode 1171. And it turns out that Spotify tells me that I've just clicked over 15,000 downloads or streams. I'd like to get to 50,000. Just saying, I'd like to get to 50,000. So I'm wondering if you can help. Could you leave a review on Apple or on Spotify? Could you share this podcast with your family, your friends, your colleagues? Or could you leave a comment if you're listening on Spotify? All of these things just send subtle signals to the algorithm, because that's the kind of world that we live in now, right? Send subtle signals to the algorithm that lets it know that this is a podcast worth listening to. And the more people who hear about it, the more people who are speaking with confidence and with authority and with impact, then hey, the better the world's going to be. And interestingly enough, Spotify also tells me that the vast majority of listeners come from organic search. When people go into Spotify, they're searching for speaking. If you know of people who want to improve their speaking, just give them a nudge. Pass this episode or pass any episode on, and it will help the algorithm gods to share this episode with more people. And then I'll let you know when I've hit that 50,000 milestone. Finally, just a reminder about that Goldilocks workshop that's coming up on the 30th of October. If speaking too much, if oversharing, data dumping, or rambling is one of the issues that you bump into when it comes to speaking and landing your message, then this workshop is for you. It's taking place on Thursday, the 30th of October, $67. It's a steal. It's a steal. Less than 10% of what I would normally charge for a coaching session. So, it's nuts. So I'd love to see you there. And I promise it's a highly interactive, non-salesy workshop. It's all value. No fluff. No fluff, because I just don't do fluff. I don't. Anyway, that is enough for this episode. I hope you feel a little bit more equipped to manage disagreements and arguments. And until I see you again next week, here's to confidence and here's to impact. I'll see you soon.